think about the internet, you probably think you've seen most of it, right? But what if I told you that everything you use online every single day is just the tiny tip of a massive iceberg? Well, today, we're diving deep, way below the surface, into the hidden layers of the web, all the way down to a really controversial and anonymous corner known as the dark web.
So let me just ask you this straight up. What percentage of the entire internet do you think you've actually seen? I mean, you browse the news, you check your social media, you watch videos, but all of that, it's happening in a shockingly small part of the web.
Okay, take a look at this. The part of the internet that you can find on search engines like Google, what we call the indexed web, that makes up a tiny, tiny 5% of the whole thing. That means a mind-boggling 95% of the web is unindexed, totally invisible to a normal search. That's the huge, hidden territory we're going to explore today. So how do we even begin to wrap our heads around that massive 95%? Well, the best way is to break the web down into 3 different layers, kind of like peeling an onion, right? Each layer has its own purpose and a totally different level of access.
All right, first up, we've got the surface web. This is the internet we all know and use every day. It's everything that's public, everything that's indexed by search engines. We're talking social media, news sites, YouTube. Basically, if you can find it on Google, you're on the surface web. Simple as that.
Now let's go one layer deeper. This is the deep web. And this is where that huge 95% we saw earlier lives. But, and this is important, it's not necessarily a scary or bad place. It's just content that isn't meant for you and me to see, stuff that's usually protected by a password. Think about your online banking, your private medical records, legal documents, or even a company's internal forums. It's stuff that's not supposed to show up on Google. And then, way down at the bottom, we finally get to the dark web. This is a very small, very specific slice of the deep web that is intentionally hidden. You can't just stumble onto it. You need special software to even get in the door. And its entire purpose, its whole reason for existing, is built around one single idea: anonymity. And that intense focus on anonymity is what makes the dark web so powerful and so controversial. It's what's known as a dual-use technology. Basically, a tool that can be used for incredible good, but also for pretty significant harm. The tool itself is neutral. It's all about who's using it. And this slide just lays it out perfectly. On one hand, you have that anonymity protecting whistleblowers who are exposing corruption, or journalists working in countries where their lives are at risk, or political activists fighting for free speech. But on the other hand, that exact same anonymity gives cover to illegal marketplaces, to hacker forums trading malware, and to people selling stolen personal information. It's the same tool, but with 2 completely different faces. So, the big question is, how do people actually get into this hidden part of the internet? Well, the key is a piece of software called Tor. And if you really want to understand the dark web, you've got to understand how Tor works. Tor actually stands for the Onion Router, and that name is perfect. Fun fact, it was originally developed by the US Navy to protect their intelligence communications. The onion part comes from the way it works. It wraps your internet traffic in multiple layers of encryption, just like an onion, and then bounces it all over the world through a network of volunteer-run computers. Let's just walk through this journey right here. When you use the Tor browser, your connection takes this crazy randomized path. So, step 1, it hits a public entry node. Then, step 2, it gets bounced between several random middle nodes. Now, the key here is that no single one of those nodes knows both where you came from and where you're going. Finally, step 3, it leaves through an exit node and connects to the website in step 4. But here's the thing, and this is a really crucial warning. A lot of people think Tor makes you completely 100% anonymous from start to finish. That's not true. Look at that final step. Once your data leaves that last computer, the exit node, it is no longer protected by Tor's encryption. It's out in the open, and at that point, it can absolutely be exposed. So, yeah, if you're even thinking about going into this part of the internet, you have to understand the risks involved. This is not a place you just wander into unprepared. You really are, for all intents and purposes, walking into a pretty rough neighborhood. And honestly, this quote just says it all. Here's no safety net here. There's no one watching out for you. The same anonymity that protects good people also protects criminals, which means your risk of running into scams, malware, or just plain illegal stuff is incredibly high if you don't know what you're doing. So what kind of dangers are we talking about? Well, for starters, malware and ransomware are just waiting to infect your computer. really sophisticated phishing scams trying to steal your identity. Even the volunteer computers that make up the network can be compromised by bad actors. And on top of all that, depending on where you live, there can be very real legal consequences just for visiting certain websites.
So if you want protection, you need layers. A whole bunch of them. It all starts with using the Tor browser itself. A lot of people then add a VPN on top of that for another layer of privacy. You can use something called a security sandbox, which basically isolates your browsing so malware can't infect the rest of your computer. And of course, a good, strong firewall is an absolute must to keep an eye on everything.
Which brings us all the way back to this fundamental question. The dark web is a technology of extremes, isn't it? It's a place where vital, life-saving activism and really dangerous criminality can exist side by side, hidden from the rest of the world. So is it a tool for freedom, or is it a haven for crime? The truth is, it's both. And what it is at any given moment really just depends on who is using it and why.